All right, so President Joseph Robinette Biden's approval rating continues to nosedive as he has been taking just L after L after L on basically all of the major pieces of his promised legislative agenda, as they are basically being held up by corporate members within his own party that he still refuses to fight in any serious, legitimate way. So Jen Psaki, his spokesperson, came out and was asked a question by a reporter, and this is one of the best questions that I've seen her have to ask in a long time, basically just, begging the question of what exactly do you have to say to all of the Americans who showed up, held their nose, voted for Joe Biden because he promised all of these things to them, and he has completely failed to deliver, even on things that he has the unilateral authority to act on by himself. So this response from Jen Psaki, I think, is just a perfect example of how completely out of touch the Joe Biden administration is, and she continues to just be absurdly condescending in every single question that she is asked, instead of just being honest and admitting the shortcomings of the Biden administration so far. So let's just go ahead and listen to this clip.
I know there have been some challenges this week, but zooming out kind of even more, what's your message to Democratic voters out there who said they voted for lawmakers to protect voting rights, turn the tide on global warming, lower prescription drug prices, reform police departments, raise the minimum wage, tackle student debt, and have gotten none of it?
Our message to them is that we're still fighting for absolutely every component of what you just listed. And that right now we're dealing with the realities of the fact that we have a very slim majority in the Senate and in the House that makes things more challenging than they have been in the past. I would also note, and I bet a lot of Americans who have conveyed their advocacy for a lot of those issues the president cares deeply about, have also cared deeply about getting the pandemic under control, have also cared deeply about ensuring schools are open across the country, that small businesses are functioning, that our economy is up and running. And those have been the top issues basically in every piece of data we've seen across the board. So the message from the president to them is he is committed to continuing to fight. You heard him say this week that voting rights, the rights of people to express their views at the polls is something that is fundamental to him, and he's going to stay at it.
Okay, so there was just, so many different pathetic ways that we could go about analyzing what she just said. It was just like a complete non-response to the actual substance of the question that was posed. Now, first of all, let's just get down before we get into the actual policies that the reporter was asking about, because we can go, policy by policy and exactly see where the Joe Biden administration has been failing on all of these fronts. But first of all, using the excuse that, we have a slim majority in the House and the Senate, that is just completely pathetic. Okay, first of all, because we've seen that Joe Biden has absolutely no willingness to even mildly confront the members of his own party that are actively blocking his agenda. Now, they're not blocking his agenda because, that's what the American people want. No, he has the ability to utilize the best weapon that any politician actually has at their disposal, and that is public support. He has the ability to go and pressure Joe Manchin, go do rallies in Arizona and West Virginia, and force them to fall in line with the rest of the party. Now, he hasn't even mildly been trying to go in that direction and fighting with them. He's basically been, applauding them and complimenting them throughout this entire process, pretending as if they've been acting in good faith when they haven't been the entire time, okay? They've just been corrupt. They've just been acting in bad faith throughout the entirety of the negotiations on all of these pieces of legislation. Now, that's number one. Number two, at an even more fundamental level, why do you even have a slim majority in the House and in the Senate? Well, go back and look at the data of the 2020 elections, and you will see that it was progressives who disproportionately outperformed in those elections, and it was corporate Democrats. It was the Biden-style Democrats in the Senate and the House races who significantly underperformed in those elections. So corporate Democrats and that entire neoliberal mindset that Joe Biden was running on, that's part of the reason why you ended up with such slim majorities in both the House and the Senate. So that's just number one, but the same message goes for all of these policies and how they have not been implemented in any way, shape, or form. Now, on voting rights, okay, she just had the audacity to sit there and say that Joe Biden, gave this grandstanding speech that I talked about on this channel down here in Georgia, where he says, I believe that democracy is fundamental to this country, and we are going to do everything that we can to stand up and fight back against the GOP as they are passing these restrictive voting laws all around the country. Now, this is what he said. He literally said during that speech, "I will not flinch. Biden vows to defend voting rights." Okay, so this was 3 days ago. All right, and within that 3-day period, we've already gotten a completely contradictory message from Joe Biden himself, okay? This "I will not flinch" was 3 fucking days ago, and then we just got this a couple days later. Biden, I don't know whether we can get this done. And he said this in response to that speech that I covered on this channel of Kirsten Sinema going up in front of the Senate and basically giving completely horseshit justifications for why she opposes getting rid of the filibuster, specifically for voting rights legislation. Again, remember, just on that front, okay, it's not completely scrapping the filibuster, which they should do, but it was literally just a carve out for specifically voting rights legislation. So you have a corporate Democrat who is literally using the exact same tactics that were used by Southern conservatives in the Jim Crow era and during the civil rights era to block voting rights legislation and civil rights legislation. And you have a member of your own party doing that exact same goddamn thing right now, and you have no power to push back against her or no power to try to use the bully pulpit to force her to fall in line. It's just completely pathetic for these statements to be just days apart from each other. This is a perfect embodiment of the Joe Biden administration, right? On the on the rhetoric, he comes out here and he pretends like he's going to be the next Lyndon B. Johnson or FDR and be willing to go out there and actually stand firm and fight to control the members of his own party to fall in line, and then literally within days just completely collapses. So that's just number one on the voting rights legislation that she's talking about there. But then we go on to global warming. So what's the latest on global warming and trying to actually push back against climate change? Well, we just had this, okay? Operating in bad faith, Joe Manchin reportedly no longer even supports his own Build Back Better counteroffer. So after we went through a literal months and months and months long process of these bullshit bad faith negotiations on Build Back Better between, the Bernie Sanders wing of the party and the corrupt motherfucker Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema wing of the party, throughout the entirety of these negotiations, we got it watered down from the initial $6 trillion, then down to the $3.5 trillion, then down to the $1.8 trillion, and now Joe Manchin is not even willing to support his own counteroffer. So again, I don't know how much clearer you need it to be that they were not acting in good faith throughout this entire process. And so again, on climate change legislation, we literally have Joe Biden's already watered down and completely inadequate climate change legislation that he was planning on passing in Build Back Better. That in and of itself wasn't going to be enough, but that completely is being blocked by a literal millionaire coal baron who is just massively corrupt. Okay, so again, he's not even willing to come out here and even mildly draw a connection between the fact that Joe Manchin opposes the climate change aspects within Joe Biden's agenda and the fact that he owns a fucking coal company and has investments in fossil fuels, and so he has a direct financial incentive both in his own personal situation and in the campaign contributions that he gets from the fossil fuel industry, that he is just completely corrupt. And Joe Biden is not willing to go out there and draw those connections for people or to even mildly, go and do a rally or mildly pressure Joe Manchin in any way, shape, or form. So that's a complete failure on the global warming or the climate change front. Then we could go to lower prescription drug prices. Again, Kirsten Sinema took over $750,000 from Big Pharma to then turn around and go and oppose the measure that was within Build Back Better that would have allowed for Medicare to negotiate drug prices. So again, you are allowing something that the American people, that was the number one issue within Build Back Better, that had the single highest amount of support within Build Back Better, and you let it get taken out by a single or a handful of completely corrupted members within your own party. Again, what message do you think that sends to the American people who elected you to go and do these things, and you just completely fold the instant that something stands in your way after pretending like you're going to be this I will not flinch guy, and you just completely flinch immediately on every single one of these goddamn issues. So that's just on prescription drug prices. We can go on. Reforming police departments. Joe Biden is ratcheting up funding to our police departments around the United States massively, okay? Just the same as Trump was doing. So complete failure on that. We haven't seen any federal level serious police reform in any way, shape, or form. So that's a complete failure. Raise the minimum wage. And in fact, also you have to understand this and the rest of these in the context of the history of Joe Biden throughout his Senate career as well. In the reforming the police departments, a lot of the problems that we have right now with mass incarceration are a direct result of Joe Biden's own crime bill that he helped write. Okay, so again, you got to understand these things. It's not surprising that Joe Biden would not be willing to do many of these things because these are the same fucking problems that he helped to create in the first place, okay? So they continue raising the minimum wage. Well, what did we see on that fight, okay? The $15 minimum wage got scrapped by a goddamn Senate parliamentarian who nobody had ever heard of before they let it get scrapped because of this person, okay? A completely unelected bureaucrat who has absolutely zero power whatsoever, who Kamala Harris could have single-handedly overridden to get the $15 minimum wage passed, and they just chose not to. They just lied down on the ground in a chalk outline of themselves in the most pathetic way humanly imaginable. They let the $15 minimum wage get completely tanked by a fucking bureaucrat that Republicans ignore all the time and fire all the time. to shove through some of the most unpopular pieces of legislation in history. But we can go again, tackling student loan debt. Where the fuck is even the $10,000 that Joe Biden ran on? Well, just to remind you guys exactly where he's standing right now on student debt cancellation, not only is he not willing to do his own campaign promise of $10,000 for every single American canceled of student debt, which in and of itself would be pathetically inadequate, but this is the latest basically that we've heard from the Joe Biden administration. Jen Psaki blames Congress for lack of student debt relief, says that Biden would happily sign a bill. Here's the problem. He doesn't need to fucking sign a bill, okay? He has the unilateral executive authority, okay, under an act that was already passed through Congress. All he has to do is go to his education secretary and scrap the fucking bills. That's all you have to do. You can cancel it like that. He could cancel it with the stroke of a pen tomorrow, 100% of federally owned student loan bills, and he's turning around and saying, oh, it's because Congress hasn't sent me a bill. Okay, do you think people are this fucking stupid? I mean, seriously, how stupid do they have to think that people are to come out here and have your spokesperson say that you are still fighting for these things? You could do it right now. You could literally sit down at a desk, sign a fucking piece of paper, and do that. And you want me to believe that you are fighting for it? What the fuck does that even mean, fighting for it? It's just completely hollow, platitudes that we have coming out here. But the last one, okay, we've got none of it. So we have all of these different things, okay, that Joe Biden has completely failed to deliver to the American people that he ran on, that he promised. And it's not just that he's failed to deliver it, okay? It's not just that, they have a tough situation in the Senate and the House and, what can he do? It's the nature of how they have failed to do it. It's the fact that Americans are not this goddamn stupid, and we can see that Joe Biden is not trying at all, okay? So again, if you look at the data, the primary amount that Joe Biden's approval rating has been slipping in the recent weeks has been with young people, okay? And so on all of those issues that we just listed, whether it's on healthcare, whether it's on, climate change, or whether it's on student loan cancellation, this is why his approval rating is primarily tanking recently, okay? It's a majority people who are under the age or between the age of 30 to 44 and also under the age of 30, okay? That's where the primary amount of his approval rating is slipping. So you could do these things tomorrow, okay? You could cancel student loan debt tomorrow. You could legalize marijuana tomorrow. You can go and fight the members of your own party so that even if you do fail to pass a lot of this legislation, at least it looks like you're fighting, okay? Instead of just literally looking like you are a hollow, empty shell of your former self who can't even go out there and pressure members of your own party that are just massively corrupt and blocking your entire legislative agenda. So again, his administration so far in the first year has somehow been even more pathetic than I was anticipating it being. But, this is exactly what we could expect from a hollow neoliberal ghoul like Joe Biden.